Chapter 5. "Hey Lucifer," Ronnie whispered as he kneeled beside his nephew's bed. "Wake up, buddy." "Come on, Lucifer," Ron continued as he then also rubbed on the teen's chest. It was about an hour prior to sundown and Ronnie had decided that his brother's 38th birthday would be just a little extra special. "What's going on?" Lucifer asked as he turned his head and looked towards his uncle. It was obviously too hot in the room as Ronnie found Lucifer's and Tommy's hair seemingly soaked and matted to their heads. As Lucifer lifted his head, Tom had simultaneously turned over, facing the wall, and then continued to sleep. "Hey buddy," Ron continued to whisper, "I want you to help me to celebrate your dad's birthday a little differently this year. Come on out to the kitchen." With his request, Ronnie saw a slight smile grow upon his nephew's face as Lucifer had also reached out towards Tommy and lightly rubbed his lower back. "Well, let me wake Tom up real quick. Then we'll be right out, Uncle Ronnie." With this, Ronnie quickly thanked Lucifer and then lightly patted the teen on the butt just as Lucifer began to roll onto his side, facing Tom's back. Moments later, Lucifer heard the bedroom door shut as Ron exited the room. "Hey Tommy," Lucifer now whispered. Initially, without any response, Lucifer carefully moved his hand from Tommy's lower back to the top of his hip where he lightly held onto the bony structure. "Let's get up." Still, without a response, Lucifer then pulled himself close to Tommy, his bare chest to Tom's bare back, and embraced the warmth off of Tommy's body. As they continued to lay on their sides, only covered with a single sheet and then their boxers, Lucifer pulled himself even closer as he planted his face into Tom's back, between his shoulder blades, and then even bent his knees to fit into Tommy's exact sleeping position. Now, as he stretched his right arm out in front of Tommy, he carefully retracted his arm as he lightly hugged him. With his hand on the center of Tom's sternum, he then lightly and slowly dragged his arm downward towards his navel cavity, over it, and then stopped as he reached the elastic band of Tommy's boxers. Lightly rubbing the skin between his belly button and the top of the boxers, Lucifer felt a narrow line of hair that had started at the navel cavity and then drew itself down into Tom's shorts. In daylight, or within the lit room, the dark-colored hair seemed to be in perfect harmony with the light tan color of Tommy's skin and perfectly trimmed at that. Now, however, as they continued to lay on their sides, Lucifer lightly lifted the elastic off of Tom's belly as he allowed his fingers to follow the trail further into the warmer regions. "I love Lucifer," Tom finally said. "I love you too, Tommy," Lucifer answered as he had also buried his fingers in the thick coarse hairs, just above Tommy's manhood. "My uncle wants us to help with my father's birthday. He wants to do something differently this year." "Well," Tom replied, still to this point without moving, "change is good once in a while. I wonder what he's got in mind." With this question, Tommy turned his head to his right, so that he could see Lucifer. Then, as he lifted his chin, he lightly kissed Lucifer on the cheek. Moving his own right arm between himself and Lucifer, Tom felt Lucifer's lower belly and had also quickly found that he was aroused as his extremity bulged out of the top of his boxers. "Before we do anything outside of this room, Lucifer, I think that you better tell that puppy to go to bed," Tom joked. "I'll wake Macaulay up. I'll be out there in a minute." "All right," Lucifer answered as he opened the bedroom door. Then, as he stood in the doorway, he turned to look back. "I love you, Tom. And thank you." "I love you too, Lucifer," Tom said as he then watched Lucifer leave the room. "Hey Macaulay. It's time to get up, buddy." "Thanks, Lucifer," Ron said as he noticed his nephew walk into the kitchen. "What I wanna do, that I think would be the perfect touch to your dad's birthday, is breakfast in bed for him. What do you think about that idea?" Ron said as he was cooking over the stovetop. Taking a step forward to see exactly what his uncle was cooking, Lucifer found a large steak with onions, mushrooms, and diced green peppers. "It looks like and smells like a perfect idea," Lucifer responded. "It looks like a meal that everyone would go for." "And that's exactly what I thought too," Ronnie continued as he took the lid off of an electric fry pan beside the stovetop. "So I bought enough for everyone." Instantly, as Ronnie removed the lid, the entire kitchen began to smell like the roast steak. "How about you, Tommy, and Macaulay, go brush your teeth?" Soon the breakfast in bed was done and over and, as consumed by Ronnie, it was the perfect touch to Malachi's birthday. Lucifer was proud of how happy his father was about the surprise. Then, just moments afterwards, once everyone was up and dressed, Malachi decided that a séance, of which they hadn't done in a long time, would be a great way to cap off the evening. "Hey guys." Eddie spoke up just as they were about finished with Malachi's birthday cake and ice cream. "What would you think about doing the séance up here in the living room? It would be a change from the normal boring old basement routine." "Why not?" Nicole asked as she shrugged her shoulders. "I don't see how it would hurt anything." "But first," Ronnie interrupted, causing everyone to pause, "I've got something for you, Malachi, for your birthday." Getting up from his seat, Ronnie picked up an envelope that he had sitting on the table, beside his plate. Handing it to his older brother, as Malachi also had to partially stand up, Ron watched Malachi sit back down, with the envelope in hand, and then slowly opened it. As Malachi opened the flap of the envelope, he then looked up, at his younger brother, as he simultaneously removed its contents. Taking his eyes off of his brother, Malachi then found himself staring at 4 reserved pamphlets for the Wolf Lodge Motel in Traverse City, Michigan. "Oh my God, Ronnie," Malachi said as he then looked back at his brother again, "what's up, little bro? It's called 1 week for all of us, away from home, at the Wolf Lodge Motel, in Traverse City, Michigan. Free meals, for all of us, 3 times a day, free access to their indoor water park for our entire stay, starting on June 12th through June 18th. "Thank you, Ronnie," Malachi said as his eyes began to water up. "I don't know I could." "You don't have to." Ronnie interrupted, "You're my brother, a great one at that, and you, just the same as the rest of us, deserve a vacation. Your son's birthday would be a good day to begin that vacation." As Ron continued with his explanation, everyone else sat in their seats as each of their jaws seemed to have hit the floor. Soon, as planned by Eddie, everyone was sitting around the living room in a circle, after closing the living room window shades, as they watched Eddie light 6 candles. With string connecting the candles, to form a 6-pointed star, Eddie quickly turned off the light and then sat down beside the rest of the household. "We gather today, on Malachi's birthday, to speak to our friends, Lloyd, James, Sterling, and Scott. Through the power of this star, and the love within this home." "Hello guys." A voice responded, "It's nice to have a chance to talk to you guys," Scott said as his voice finally tuned itself in. "It's nice to see you, Scott." Tommy responded. "How are you doing?" With his question, Tommy had also positioned himself, onto his knees, rather than sitting Indian style. "I'm doing great, Tommy," Scott answered as he turned to face him, "and how are you doing?" "I'm doing good and I." "Sorry to interrupt you, Tommy. I need you and Lucifer to both listen to me very carefully. All right?" Scott said as he surprised the entire family. "Okay," Tom said as he had also looked towards Lucifer. "Guys. Between you guys and I, there is something that needs to be spoken about. And, in about 3 weeks, you'll figure out exactly what it is that I'm talking about." Scott continued as he kept looking back and forth to both Tommy and Lucifer. "It's not something bad, guys. Just something that your family has the right to know about. Something that you've been predestined to tell your parents when you're 17 years old." Instantly, as Scott said this, both Malachi and Nicole stared at one another as their memories flashed back to this issue being spoken about several years ago. Starting back to prior to Lucifer's birth. "Also, guys, it's something that would help you too. Something that you guys should be open about." As Scott completed his sentence, he then looked down, to the floor, where Lucifer's and Tommy's hands set within one another. "And," Malachi spoke up after turning his attention to both Lucifer and Tommy, "whatever it is. It could be anything. We love you guys just the same. No matter what." With this said, both Tommy and Lucifer looked down, towards the floor at one another's hands, just the same as Scott still was. "We promise." Deep in the minds and hearts of both Lucifer and Tommy, they both now knew what it was that Scott was talking about. What had them both confused, however, is the part about how it was a predestined mission. How could anyone have known? Much more. How could have anyone known before them? Malachi's birthday was very much enjoyed, and then as Lucifer's birthday rolled around just a few weeks later, everyone was looking forward to their well-planned vacation to Traverse City, Michigan. "Guys," Belinda announced as she stuck her head into Lucifer's, Tom's, and Macaulay's bedroom, "remember to pack your swimming suits." "Well, I guess that your Uncle Ron and I need to catch up to you guys then," Belinda said as she saw their bag packed. Moments later, as Belinda walked into the living room, she found her husband bringing their suitcases out to a couple of others. "The boys are all ready to go, hun." "Well, that's good. That should be everything then," Ron answered as he stood Eddie's, Angel's, and Don D's suitcase up on end. "We're all ready to go. Angel and Eddie. Let's go, guys." While Belinda and Ronnie gathered everything together in the kitchen, both Malachi and Nicole went through the house locking windows and doors, including those to both of the Hummers. "Okay. So how are we gonna do this?" Angel asked as Eddie, Don D, and himself all reached the top of the stairs. "Angel," Malachi said, "I want you to take a suitcase with you, Eddie." "I want you to take a suitcase, Lucifer." "I want you to take the last suitcase, Tommy." "I would like you to take the backpack, Macaulay." "I want you to take your sister, Ronnie. Take your wife, and I will take my wife." "Who's gonna lead the way?" Lucifer asked. "It doesn't really matter who leads," Ron said, "but, then again, us adults do know the way a little better. In fact, just to cut through the chase, I'll lead the way with Belinda," Ron said, and then looked at everyone else for any further suggestions. It was just after sundown on June 11th when everyone stepped out onto the back porch. With plans to celebrate Lucifer's birthday the following evening, at the motel, everything was pretty well planned out and rehearsed for their week away from home. With the Weather Channel claiming that the temperature would be in the 90s, the whole family was looking forward to this much-needed time away from home. Though it was roughly 9 o'clock when they had lifted off of their back porch, it was just after 11 o'clock, Michigan time, when they found themselves hovering over a busy intersection in Traverse City, South Airport and US 31. Angel announced as he lowered himself cautiously closer to the well-lit street sign. "At least we're in the right town." "There," Nicole said all of a sudden, as she pointed to the west side of the road and further north. "You can see the water park slides through the window." Then, just as the words came out of her mouth, they all instantaneously elevated and hovered into a northwestern direction over the moving traffic down below. Moments later, just as they were just above the well-lit-up building, Angel had made indication of a dark area just beside the building, close to its entrance. Then, all together, they descended onto the parking lot and then huddled together. Now, with Nicole, Belinda, and Don D on their own feet, they all walked, together, around the corner of the building, and then into the front door. It had been a long day at work for Gary. With about 45 minutes left of his shift, he was looking forward to going home to be with his children. Loosening his tie, as he turned away from the counter, he had already completed the totals on his register when he heard the lobby door open. Looking towards the main doors, he saw a group of 10 people approaching the desk, 5 adults, 2 teenage boys, perhaps 16 or 17 years old, a girl and a boy that were both in their early teens, and then a boy perhaps about 10 years old. The entire group, with an exception of one of the 2 adult females, was obviously Hispanic, with the young boy having much darker skin than the others. The one non-Hispanic girl was white with long reddish hair. One particular detail that stood out of all of them, however, is that all the males, including the child, all had Halloween vampire teeth in their mouths. Must have just left a cosmic party. Gary thought to himself. No. Actually, we just arrived from Colorado. The young child said we have reservations for 4 rooms from now through the 17th. Pausing, as the child looked up to one of the adult males. Malachi. If you guys take the stuff away from the desk, I'll handle this. Actually, Gary responded, I'll need one of the adults to sign for the rooms. Just as the words came out of Gary's mouth, the child instantly leaped up off of the floor, hard enough to land his rear on the customer counter, with his back towards Gary. Simultaneously, the kid waved the others on as one of the adults handed the kid the reservations papers. What's going on? Gary asked as the others walked away, leaving the child on the counter. I'll tell you what's going on. the kid said as he pivoted himself, on the counter, to face Gary. My name is Angel Coleman. And that man, that just handed me these reservation papers is Malachi de Clue. But I still. But. Angel counter-interrupted, you will listen to me. Pulling out his wallet, and then showing his driver's license to the clerk, he continued. I am 27 years old, I've had a long day, now I'm frustrated as hell. And I'm about to take every bit of it out on you. As Angel continued to speak, he pointed his finger at the clerk, here's the papers, now give us the damn keys for 4 rooms. Also, you can give me the name and number to your manager. I'm sorry, Gary said as she moved quickly to do just as he was told, it's just that I thought. Stop rattling your jaw, Angel snapped as he now hung his legs off of the register side of the desk. Moments later, after the clerk had taken the paperwork and handed receipts, with a pen, to the small adult, Angel then handed the pen and signed paperwork back. Not without intentionally allowing the pen to fall to the floor, causing the clerk to bend over to pick it up. The last time I saw a crack like that was overlooking the Grand Canyon. Looks like you're the one just coming from a costume party, Angel said with a giggle in his voice. Without saying another word, Gary stood back up, backed away from the counter, and then watched the small adult jump back down to the floor with keys in hand. Seconds later, the entire family was out of sight as Gary put both of his hands to his temples and rubbed them. About 200 feet, beyond the customer desk, Angel found his family staring back at him with their eyes wide open and their lower jaws seemingly down to the floor. Here's the keys, guys, Angel said as he caught up to them. I don't think that we'll have any further problems with that clerk. Well. Ronnie answered for all of them as he had also put his hand out for the keys. I'd hope not. If I had someone snap off on me like that, I don't think that I would ever get in their way again. Then, just as Ronnie stopped talking, he handed one of the 4 keys back to Angel labeled as room 19. Too bad that we couldn't get all of the rooms side by side of one another. Ronnie added as he noticed that their room keys were for rooms 17 through 19 and then 21. Well. If you'd like I could go back and... Oh no, Angel, Eddie said as he set his hands on his roommate's shoulder, I think that we're doing just fine with these rooms. Are you sure? Because I think that that clerk could handle just a little more, Angel joked with his family. Right, Malachi said. I think that he just may quit if you were to just go out to the desk again. I don't think that you would have to say a word. Malachi ensured. Okay guys. Ron interrupted, Malachi and Nicole, he continued as he handed the key with room 17 on them to his brother, Lucifer, Tommy, and Macaulay. Ron added as he handed them keys with room 21 to them, Angel. You, Eddie, and Dondia camp out together. And then, Belinda and I will be in room 18. Immediately, Tom, Lucifer, and Macaulay continued their journey, through the water park, that was centered within the lobby, and then straight to their rooms without taking their eyes off of the huge slides that nearly reached the ceiling of the nearly 50-foot-high room. Then, as they entered their room, all 3 of them instantly dug out their swim trunks from their backpack. Seconds later, with towels over their shoulders, all 3 of the boys were headed towards the water park. Look at this, Malachi said, to Nicole, after he heard a bunch of feet racing past the room. The boys couldn't wait to hit that water. Of course. Nicole responded as she opened their suitcase. Craig City Park and the Craig High School's pool is all that they have had for swimming enjoyment. Now water slides, big ones at that, nearly the height of the building. Yeah. You're right. Malachi interrupted. I remember how cool it was when we went to Alvin, Texas years ago. That was a big pool. Yeah, it was. I've always wondered though, Malachi continued, why didn't the Alvin pool or the one at the Craig High School have that old sign posted in them? Old sign, Malachi? Nicole asked as she stopped digging clothes out of the suitcase. Yep. It said notice that P is not in pool. Keep it that way. As Malachi finished what he was saying, Nicole covered her mouth as she almost laughed at her husband's inquiry. Well. Maybe high schoolers and the residents of the state of Texas know how to tie knots, Nicole joked back. Hey Angel. Eddie said as they had put their clothes away, let's hurry up and go to the pool. This is gonna be fun. As Eddie spoke, he was in the process of shuffling Don D into the restroom, to change, while him and Angel would quickly change, in the room, during her absence. I know. I'm just wondering how that clerk is gonna like seeing us so soon again. Angel said as he turned his back, towards Eddie, to change. On the other hand, Eddie said as he looked at his watch, let's wait another 10 minutes. Nah. I'll be good. I promise. It wasn't long before everyone, except for Nicole and Malachi, who decided that they would spend the whole night to themselves, had found each other enjoying themselves on the water slides, swimming, and enjoying their time together. Even Angel had enjoyed the entire evening as he laughed and played just as much as everyone else. It wasn't until about 1 o'clock in the morning that everyone was done swimming. As everyone went in, to their separate rooms, Macaulay had quickly found himself a movie, on HBO, as Tommy and Lucifer both stepped out of the room. What do you wanna do? Tom asked as the motel room door shut behind them. There's a place here, in Traverse City, that I wanna see. Lucifer answered as he looked back towards Tommy, it's called Side Tracks. Side Tracks? Tommy questioned as they headed for the exit. What's that? He continued with an odd look on his face. It's a. Now, as he began to chew on his lower lip, it is a gay bar. Lucifer managed as he had, for the first time, put into words, their sexuality. A gay bar. Tom Holland loudly as they stood in the Wolf Lodge's parking lot. Lucifer. You're only 17 and I'm 16. We can't go into a bar. They'll never let us in. So. We won't ask, Lucifer said. We'll just go in and not allow ourselves to be ID'd. Not allow ourselves to be ID'd? Lucifer. Listen to yourself, Tom said quietly, there are people blocking those doors waiting to see your ID. And besides that, we don't know where this Side Tracks is. Franklin and 8th. Lucifer shot out immediately. Oh my God, Lucifer. You know exactly where it is too. Tom asked as a grin slowly grew on his face. Well. We have to search for 8th and Franklin. Pausing, Lucifer then reached out to hold Tom's hand. Relax. If you really don't want to, that's alright. We don't have to. I just think that it would be cool to see a group of people like us. Gay vampires. Lucifer, I don't think that we're gonna find others exactly like us. We're sorta like unique. Ethan, holding on to Lucifer's hand, just a little tighter, he pulled his hand up, to his own face, and kissed the back of Lucifer's hand. But. I'll do whatever you want. Using his opposite hand, Lucifer reached over and inserted his finger into one of Tommy's belt loops and pulled him closer to himself. I want you to be happy, Tom. We don't have to go in. Let's just look into the windows. If anything, it could be just a walk and then turn around, at Side Tracks, and then head back to the motel. Okay, Lucifer. I just don't want us to get into any trouble. That's all. After crossing US 31 and then heading north, along the sidewalk, they had crossed at least 3 different roads before they had come along a numbered street. 14th Street, that turned right. After crossing 14th Street, they had found that all of the following crossroads were much closer together than those prior to 14th. Soon, however, they had found 8th Street and then turned right as they now headed into the eastern direction. Now, as they continued to walk, their crossroads were Maple, Oak, Wadsworth, Pine, Locust, Union, Case, Boardman, Wellington, and then finally, near a railroad, Franklin. Ah, Tommy, Lucifer said as he pointed towards a white brick building, along the right side of 8th Street, there aren't any windows. This fact was obvious. What was also obvious, however, is that it was in fact a bar by the loud music that blared each time that someone opened its door. Well. Tommy responded. We could just watch some of these people walking out. Pausing, both Lucifer's and Tommy's attention was taken to the shadow of someone around the opposite corner of the building. Stepping closer to the brick building, without making any noise, both Tom and Lucifer worked their way closer to the faint voices that came from the direction of the shadows. Now, within a shadow casted from the building, both of the boys found themselves staring at the back of the heads of 2 people that were hiding behind a corner of a neighboring building. Both of them had baseball bats and were staring at two other guys, who were holding hands, and walking into their direction. Lucifer. I don't like what I'm seeing. Tom thought as clear as he could. Me neither. Lucifer answered, I don't think that those guys, that are headed in this direction, are even odd enough to drink. Let's make sure that these thugs don't get a chance. I agree. Tom thought, let's wait until they. In mid-thought, just as the two soon-to-be victims were only a few feet from the corner, the two other guys, that were hiding around the corner, stood up and then stepped out, into the light, exposing their intentions to the two young guys that were instantly petrified. Wah! What do you want? One of the, possibly, teens said as the strangers stepped out in front of them. I wanna stick this bat up your ass, fag. One of the two men said and then raised the bat high into the air, like as if he was gonna swing it. Simultaneously the other attacker wound up his bat as well as he had suddenly felt someone, or something, that had grasped the bat's other end. Leaping forward, and into the swinging path of his buddy, he quickly found himself to be struck, by his own friend, across the side of the face. Oh no! The man yelled as he saw what he had done. In that same moment, as he had kneeled down beside his friend, he had looked up towards the teens, of which he instantly blamed this incident on, and then had also noticed two other people standing behind him, one of which held his friend's bat. Looks like that you're the one with the problem, Lucifer said as he held the bat over his shoulder. I think that perhaps you better drop your bat very quickly. Fuck you. The guy yelled back as he instantly stood up and leaped towards Lucifer. All within that very split second, however, Tommy reached out, around Lucifer, and gripped onto the man's neck, immediately shutting off his air supply. Through this quick action, Lucifer never even as much as flinched. Stepping forward, over the man that still laid on the ground, Lucifer approached the two teens who watched in horror. Are you guys alright? Lucifer asked. Turning his attention, from the person that was on the ground, next to Lucifer, the 14-year-old trembled with fear from the two men approaching them with bats. As he continued to watch Lucifer, without saying a word in response, he reached out towards his 15-year-old boyfriend. Yeah. We're alright. These guys were gonna really hurt us, weren't they? Yes they were. Lucifer responded. But you're safe now. Nothing is gonna happen to you guys. With this said, Lucifer stepped up to their sides as he saw them both trembling. Putting a hand on both of their shoulders, Lucifer turned them to where they were facing the opposite direction. Like this, and as he drew the two teens together to embrace one another, Tommy then picked up the two men, one in each hand, and then instantly jumped up, into the darkness without a sound. If you would like. Lucifer spoke again. I can take you guys home so that you'll feel more safe. As Lucifer spoke, he had also noticed that the younger one of the two had began to quietly cry. We're staying at the Holiday Inn. The older boy said, would you guys please walk us back there? Yes. Of course we will, Tom said as he suddenly walked up to their sides. Guys. My name is Tommy and this is my boyfriend Lucifer. Pausing, as he looked over the younger teens. Lucifer. I've taken out the trash. Where is the Holiday Inn? Just at the end of Franklin Street. Where Franklin, US 31, and Front Street all meet together. Well, Tom continued, we'll make sure that you get there safely. Where are you guys from? The 14-year-old asked. The boys had soon learned that the younger and much smaller one of the two was named Robbie and the other was named Russell. We're from Colorado. Lucifer answered. Right now we are on vacation visiting Traverse City. Looking ahead of them, rather than at Robbie, everyone could clearly see the lit-up sign to the Holiday Inn. Then suddenly, without warning, red and blue lights began to flash as a loud siren whelped right behind them. Turning around, to see the source of flashing lights and the siren, all four of the teenagers found themselves staring at a Grand Traverse County Patrol car. Hey guys! A woman's voice sounded from the open window of the vehicle. Where are you guys headed at this time of night? What the boys didn't know is that she had watched them walk, most of the distance, from side tracks as they walked across Webster Street, Washington Street, and then were about to reach State Street when she decided to pull the teens over to see what they were up to do. Just to the Holiday Inn. Russell answered. These guys are walking us back there for our safety. None of you guys are from around here, are ya? The deputy asked as she put the car in park and stepped out. "No ma'am." Tommy answered him, pointing to Lucifer, "and I are visiting, with our family, from Colorado. We just met these guys and offered to walk them back to their motel." "Well, that was nice of you to do that, guys. But listen, we do have a curfew here in Traverse City." Pausing as she continued to watch the teens, "How about some IDs, guys?" Startled by the request, Lucifer had dropped his wallet on the ground, as he then bent over to pick it up. Then, as he opened it up, he handed the lady his Colorado driver's license. Simultaneously, Tom and Russell also gave her their IDs as well. "How about you, young man?" she asked Robbie. "Do you have an ID?" "No ma'am. I've never had one before," Robbie responded. "Oh. Well. Hold on a minute, guys," she continued as she raised her radio microphone to her mouth. 735 to Central. "Go ahead 735. I'll need an additional unit at the corner of Franklin and State. Routine. 10 to 4 735. Central to 716. It was only seconds later that another county patrol car had showed up on scene. As that patrol car pulled up, from the opposite direction, its overhead lights turned on as well as it pulled up, bumper to bumper, to the first car. Instantly the driver's side door opened as a male deputy stepped out. "Hey. What's up?" "Not much, Mr. Wales. I've got 4 teens here, after curfew." Passing as she looked at both Lucifer and Tommy, "Where are you guys staying?" "At the Wolf Lodge," Lucifer answered. "Tom and I are staying in room 21. "Okay," the woman said as she wrote it down. "What room are your parents staying in?" "Room 17. We don't have to tell them, do we?" Lucifer asked as he became nervous. As they continued to talk to the women officer, the other officer had gone back to his patrol car with the 3 IDs, leaving all 4 teens with the women. "Well," she began to respond as the other deputy returned to her side. "It is past curfew, and I don't know exactly what you guys were doing hanging out outside of Sidetrack's bar." "We were just walking," Tom interrupted. As Tom responded to the officer's insinuation, the other deputy began to whisper into the woman's ear. "Well, guys. It sounds like, by what we know, that you guys are telling the truth. So here's what we're gonna do. Robbie and Russell, you two go with Officer Wales. He's gonna take you two to the Holiday Inn. Lucifer and Tommy, you two will go with me to the Wolf Lodge. Alright. And no, I won't give you guys any curfew tickets because you've been honest. We do, however, gotta talk to your parents about you being out this late." "Alright," Lucifer said as he looked down towards the ground. "Ah." He immediately spoke up again as he looked up. "Can I get their address and phone number from them?" Lucifer asked in regards to Robbie and Russell. "Yeah. Hold on a minute," the lady said and then walked up to the other patrol car. Moments later she returned with Robbie's and Russell's address written on the back of a sheriff's department's business card. "Here you guys go," she said as she opened the rear seat door and then handed the business card to them. They also said to thank you for walking with them. With that said, she firmly latched the door and then climbed into the driver's seat. It had almost felt as though time had come to a stop while Tom and Lucifer both rode in the back seat of the patrol car. They honestly didn't know why. They were allowed, by their family rules, to be out up until sunrise. Lucifer's mom and his grandma Karina were both former officers. Yet, for some reason, they both felt completely out of place while being escorted back to the motel. As they continued on down the road, the female officer spoke on a cell phone as she quickly drove along the side of a body of water. Between them and the water was only a little beach and a walking path. A passing road sign indicated that they were on US 31 South and M72 until soon the deputy made a sharp left-hand turn, where US 31 continued and then M72 was left behind. As they continued, both Tom and Lucifer soon recognized the road as that they had been on, after leaving the Wolf Lodge Motel. And then soon, they were pulling into the hotel's parking lot where they both saw Lucifer's parents, expecting them. As the car was put into park, Nicole immediately went to the officer's door and spoke to her while the officer had simultaneously opened the doors for the teens to get out. Looking up to his father's face, Lucifer was almost expecting trouble and so he felt a little shocked when his father hugged him. The only thing that I would be concerned about, folks," the officer announced, to where both Malachi and Nicole could hear, "is that these two were hanging out around side tracks." "What side tracks?" Malachi asked. "Side Tracks is a gay bar here in Traverse City," the deputy continued. "I don't believe that the boys had entered the establishment, but—" "Why would you be hanging around a gay bar?" Malachi asked as he looked at both Malachi and Tommy. It was with this question that Lucifer had understood the uneasy feeling on the way to the motel. "Because—" Lucifer started and then stopped. Because I'm gay, Dad, I'm sorry." With that said, Lucifer immediately rushed into the motel, as he stared at the ground. Once Lucifer was out of sight, Malachi then looked at Tommy. Without saying a word, "I'm gay too, Mr. Declue," Tommy shot out, "and I'm in love with Lucifer." Then, without another word, Tommy too headed in, quickly catching up on Lucifer. "I'm with you, Lucifer," Tom continued as he put his hand on Lucifer's shoulder just as they reached their apartment door. Without a response, they both went into the room. Then, as they found Macaulay still watching his movie, Lucifer walked right past him, got onto the bed and then buried his face into the covers as he began to quietly cry. This grabbed Macaulay's full attention. Without saying anything to Lucifer, Tommy just got onto the bed, beside Lucifer, and held on to him. Doing this, Tommy too began to cry as he felt every ounce of his pain. The result of a long-time secret being revealed for the first time. Macaulay was deeply shocked by what he was seeing. Suddenly Macaulay had felt sad, and then he had quickly began to feel scared. He had never seen Lucifer or Tommy cry before. "My son is gay?" Malachi asked as he remained with Nicole, outside as they watched the patrol car leave. "How could that be?" "Malachi. It doesn't matter." Nicole pushed. "Lucifer is our son. And you just told him, a couple of weeks ago, that you would love and accept him for whatever it was that he would reveal. And you promised him, Malachi." Nicole pled as her eyes began to water. "And remember that he is my son too. And there is nothing in the world that could make me stop loving him." "I didn't say that I don't love him, Nicole." "No. Your words didn't quite say that, but the rest of your body said it loud and clear. He is your son, Malachi. Now," as Nicole openly cried, "he is our son, and as long as he's happy and Top's happy, that's all that matters." This was the first time that Nicole had ever questioned her husband's ability to love. This was the first time that she had seen something that had angered Malachi so much. The truth. "I've gotta go take a walk," Malachi said as he pulled away from his wife. "I've gotta think this through." Then, as Malachi turned around and left, without even saying anything more to Nicole, she began to openly cry as she turned and walked back into the building. Macaulay had nearly began to openly cry himself, as confusion raced through his body. He knew that something was terribly wrong but didn't know exactly what it was. For Lucifer, as he remained in a fetal position on his bed, he continued to cry as this was the moment that he had dreaded the most in his life. The moment that his father would turn his back on him. Lucifer had always wanted his dad to know the truth. He had always wanted his dad to know about and accept the situation between him and Tommy. But it all came down to just one time, several years before, that Lucifer had heard his father say faggot in reference to another adult who had teased Lucifer himself over his long teeth. Lucifer never forgot that one incident. Lucifer knew that his mom might be accepting of homosexuality. He made this conclusion based off of the fact that his mom had a gay friend, whose name was Pat. Tommy. Next to his family, Tom meant more than life itself to Lucifer. Lucifer had long decided that, if anything ever happened to Tom, to where he was no longer there or within his life, that he would have no reason to continue on with life. With this thought, Lucifer wrapped his arm around Tom, as he continued to hold on to him. Then, just moments later, Lucifer's mom walked into the room. "Lucifer. And Tommy." She called out as she walked towards their bed. "Listen guys," she said as she sat beside them and draped her arm over both of them, "I don't care if you're gay or not. I will always love you just the same no matter what. What you two choose to do, with your personal lives, is none of anyone's business as long as you're not hurting yourselves or anyone else. Your dad and I both love you guys very much. We both just want the absolute best for you guys. But Dad's angry at us, Lucifer said through tears. But he loves you too, Lucifer. And Tommy. And it's this love that will win the entire situation over. As Nicole continued to speak, she saw the room door open quietly, without any noise, as Malachi stood within the frame. His eyes were wet as he walked in and approached the boy's bed. Still unknown to Tom and Lucifer, whose faces were hidden within bed covers and each other. Leaning over the two teenagers, Malachi set his hand softly on his son's back and then the other on Tom's back, as he then began to massage them. Softly, Malachi set his weight onto the bed as he also laid his head on his son. With his physical contact, he had also felt both teens freeze. I'm sorry guys. I was terrible just now outside and I apologize. I did promise you two that I would accept anything about you two. This was a shock to me and that's why I reacted the way that I did. Lucifer and Tommy. You two and your mom are the world to me and I love all of you guys very much. And nothing will ever change that. I love you too, Dad, Lucifer cried softly. And I always will. Instantly, Malachi had felt peace as he spoke to the kids. Though it was only a short period of time, a combination of what his wife had said, outside, and the fact that he did love the boys very much, took priority over the situation. As everyone began to wind down, Macaulay had gotten up onto his Aunt Nicole's lap as he watched, with his own eyes, everything go back to normal. In fact, Malachi had made a point, with Nicole, to stay with the boys until everything was okay. A lot of this time involved hugs and a lot of heart-to-heart talking. And, you know what? Nicole asked Lucifer. What's that, Mom? I think that I knew about you and Tom. I just wanted you to admit to it. As that following Friday rolled around, about as much of fun and joy was put into the vacation as feasibly possible. Eric Myers, Eddie said as everyone sat down together for late-night breakfast, he was from this area, wasn't he? Yeah, Belinda said as she held out her coffee cup, for a refill from the passing waiter, or Gron, anyhow. Where's that? With the questions, Eddie was trying to make a point, for no reason to himself, but rather for the family in general, to see his burial plot. Just southwest of here. Malachi answered. As he made a silly face at both Tom and Lucifer, along US 31 near the county border. Why the sudden curiosity over Eric Myers? Belinda asked. It's just nice to know that the monster won't ever hurt another person. Pausing, the sudden images of Sterling rolling over the hood, cab, and then the box of the truck, before landing in the center of the street dead, flashed through her mind. In fact, now, as I've thought about it, I would like to see his place in this world. That's what I'm thinking, Eddie said as he made eye contact with everyone around the table. Ever since Malachi, Ronnie, and I put a stop to him, it seems like there's almost a void there. Even with Sterling still living in our home. I think that seeing his burial plot might fill that void. That's been almost 20 years ago. Ronnie interrupted. Yeah, I agree with you. Let's do that tonight. Pausing, for a moment, as he had remembered some of the details of the weather report, on the local television station, 9 and 10 News. Actually, let's do it tomorrow morning. The news said that there is gonna be an overcast most of Saturday morning. So, as the evening was about to quickly come to an end, everyone agreed that this outing, to Gron, was to be in store for that following morning. Swimming first. Angel suddenly said as they were heading back to their rooms. I agree, Dawn D said as she followed Angel. I wish that Craig had a Wolf Lodge motel. I'd stay there every night. And who, Dawn D, do you think would pay for that tab? Ron asked as he lightly grasped his daughter's shoulder. Well, you, Dad. I know that you've enjoyed the water park enough to pay. For a water park of our own maybe, Ronnie joked back, that would be a lot cheaper. With this said, however, Ron had also, to himself, considered Traverse City to be a good place to take another vacation in the future. Thinking back to their trip to Texas years before, this trip had been much more exciting. Ron had noticed something else though. He couldn't really put a thumb on it, but for some reason, he felt that something, between Lucifer, Tom, Malachi, and Nicole had changed. Ronnie recognized this change so easily that he had decided that this change took place during this vacation to Traverse City. Without knowing for sure, however, he would blow the thought off and go on enjoying the vacation with his family. Soon everyone was headed back out of their rooms with their swimming suits and towels in hand. Immediately Angel headed towards the largest slide of all, of which he had gained a liking for the first night in Traverse City. Lucifer and Tommy played off to an isolated area, away from the slides, with Macaulay, Belinda and Nicole were teaching Dawn D, in another area, how to float on her back, and then Ronnie, Malachi, and Eddie all stood, within the shallow water, and just watched their family having fun. As 6 o'clock rolled around, with the sunrise, everyone had themselves dried off and prepared to search for Eric Meyer's gravesite in Grawn. Just as the 9 and 10 news report had predicted for Traverse City, the overcast had left the door open for a safe adventure for everyone. "Too bad that we can't get that accurate of a forecast in Craig," Angel commented as they all walked out the front door. Trailing behind everyone, Angel had simultaneously realized that someone was missing. "Hey guys. Where is Eddie?" Now, as they all stood outside of the Wolf Lodge Motel, Malachi had a finger pointed at what he thought was different about the moment. "Good question. Where is he?" Malachi asked Ronnie. Then, just as the words came out of his mouth, a minivan suddenly pulled into the hotel's parking lot and then came to a stop right beside Angel. "Come on guys," Eddie said as he rolled down the window of the sky blue-colored vehicle, "we can't fly in the daylight." Though everyone was surprised that Eddie had gone out and rented a vehicle, nobody was really upset about it either. Once loaded in, everyone was soon headed south on US 31. At this point, as they were leaving the motel, it was US 31 and M37 up until they took a right-hand turn at Chum's Corners that took them past a Shell gas station on the right, past cherry growers on the left, and then to 2 cemeteries that were also on the left, or south side of the road. "Looks like that we've got a lot of searching to do," Tommy said as they parked the van. The 2 cemeteries were separated by a fence that only stood as tall as Angel. As they climbed out of the van, just about everyone was scratching their heads as they wondered where to start searching for Eric Meyer's grave. "Well," Tom said as he looked up to Malachi, "I hope that there's only one Eric Meyers. Before we left Craig, the other day, I had only found one other possible Eric Meyers," Eddie said, "and that was a living Eric Meyers in Frankfurt. Just west of here." "Just in case," Malachi responded, "look for the death date of July 16 of 2017. That's when he died." Though it was Eddie, Ronnie, and himself that had killed Eric back then, they had tried to make it not a habit to brag, celebrate, or even admit to the lives that they had personally taken. "Eddie, Angel, and Dawn D," Malachi continued as he looked towards the far end of the cemetery, "to his left, you 3 go down there and check each headstone. Lucifer, Tommy, and Macaulay, you 3 go down that way," pointing to his right. "Over the fence, into the next cemetery, to that far end, and check each headstone. Ronnie and Belinda. How about you 2 check this cemetery, from this fence, and then work your way towards Eddie, Angel, and Dawn D. Nicole and I will do the same on the other cemetery." The weather was decent for this outdoor activity during daylight. The wind, out of the south, was warm and blew gusts up to about 80 degrees. Though it smelled like rain in the air and with an overcast that appeared to be ready to pour, it never rained as much as one drop. With that scent of rain, there was also the smell of flowers in the air along with the smell of freshly cut grass as the cemetery was well groomed. "Here it is," Lucifer suddenly yelled from the other side of the fence. "Eric Meyers. Born January 18 of 1973. Died on July 16 of 2017, Lucifer continued to holler. Sure enough, it was the once famous Eric Meyers. A memory that had now renewed itself as everyone stood around, in a half-circle, looking down at the stone. "Who was he, Dad?" Dawn D asked as she looked up to him. "He's the guy that killed Sterling," Malachi answered as he looked down at her. Then, as he set his hand on her shoulder, he continued, "Before that though, he killed 3 police officers here in Michigan." "How did he die?" Dawn D asked. "By some of those that were hurt by his actions," Malachi said as he kept eye contact with his daughter. The look on her face showed confusion as she then looked back down to the engraved headstone. For Macaulay, Don D., Lucifer, Tom, and Angel, this moment only stood as a marker in history. For everyone else, the moment was a symbolic memory. Driving back to the motel, there was very little conversation, as everyone had thought about their visit to Eric Meyer's gravesite. With these thoughts, the existence of Sterling and what he means to the family also filled their minds. "I miss Sterling," Dawn D said as she rested the side of her face against the window of the minivan. "I wish that we could see them like we used to when we were younger. I wish that we could have known Scott more before he died." Macaulay commented as they watched traffic slow down at an intersection. "He's so cool now. He would have been fun to have for a friend." "Guys," Malachi said as he turned his head from the front passenger seat. "They are our friends and always will be." Reaching out, with his left hand, he placed it on his nephew's knee. "Macaulay, Scott's not suffering anymore, and that's what you've gotta remember. Besides that, Scott is also much happier than what he was before he died. And very handsome." Dawn D interrupted. With her comment, everyone, including Eddie, through the rearview mirror, all looked at her. "Do we gotta report anything to Bobby John?" Macaulay smirked. "No. I'm in love with Bobby John," Dawn D answered as they pulled into the Wolf Lodge's parking lot. "Besides that, it's kinda hard to snuggle with a dead guy," the 13-year-old continued. "Well guys," Eddie said, "I propose that we pack up and put everything into the van right now. Eat dinner." Looking at his watch, as he mentioned dinner, he noticed that it was almost 8 o'clock in the morning, a slightly late dinner that is. "And then go to bed. Then, tonight when we get up, we'll drive the van back to the rental service and then fly home." After walking back into the motel, Eddie's plan is exactly what was done. Then, after leaving Michigan, at approximately 9:05 that night, they arrived in Craig, on their back porch, at about 7:10. "Well," Tommy said just as he softly landed on the wooden deck, "there aren't very many people that get to see 2 sunsets in one night." "And just think," Lucifer added, "we could make it more than 2 if we wanted. All that we would have to do is head west and then make pit stops every once in a while." Just the notion, of the ability to do this, had caused Tommy and Belinda to stop and stare at one another with odd looks on each other's faces. With the lack of sleep, due to their vacation and their visit to Eric Meyer's gravesite, everyone decided to head off to bed. Soon, after everyone had climbed into their own bed, they quickly dozed off to sleep. "Well, that's odd," Scott said just as they watched both Eddie and Angel climb into their bed. "What's odd?" Sterling responded as he looked down to Scott. While the two watched Eddie and Angel cover up with a sheet, Lloyd and James had walked into Macaulay's, Lucifer's, and Tommy's room. This is the time that they would normally be getting up for the night. "Not going to bed," Scott said as he simultaneously turned to walk out of the room. "Maybe they didn't sleep at their regular scheduled time like they do when they're home," Sterling said just as they turned to head up the stairs. Then, just as Scott cut in front of Sterling, mid-step, Sterling quickly grasped him, from behind and under the armpits, as he then raised the 5-year-old over his own head and onto his shoulders. The rest of the way up the steps, Scott held on tightly, with his arms, as he also rested his head on top of Sterling's head. Turning over in her sleep, a blur, from the bright red digits of her alarm clock, had caught her attention, causing her to open her eyes wide. Climbing out of the bed, Dawn D wasn't sure if she had woken up to a new day or if she had instead awoken just moments after dozing off. Either way, however, she felt as though she had slept a long period of time. After climbing the stairs, Dawn D quickly found that the kitchen light was on. Entering the kitchen, she found her father sitting at the table with the local newspaper spread out across the table. "Hi Dad," Dawn D said. "Hello honey," Ron said as he turned and found his daughter standing behind him. "Are you hungry?" "Yeah. What are you gonna make?" As Dawn D stood there questioning her father, her dark brown hair hung in her face, causing it to be almost impossible for Ronnie to make direct eye-to-eye contact with the 14-year-old. "How about liver and onions?" Ronnie joked. Instantly Dawn D's face seemed to have turned in on itself. "I'm joking. How about some eggs, toast, and sausage?" "That sounds good to me." Is Mom awake? She will be soon. Ron replied. With as much sleep that we've all gotten, everyone should be up soon. With this said, Ron then stood up and hugged his daughter. It was only moments later, approximately 20 minutes, when everyone was seated at the table. There wasn't much talk as everyone just thought about their vacation. This vacation wasn't just a vacation. This vacation was also a turning point to Tom's and Lucifer's lives, as now, Nicole and Malachi were aware of the relationship between the two teens. Everyone had gotten to learn a little about the last resting place of the one that had murdered Sterling. And everyone had a chance to experience life, as a family unit, outside of the home. With the silence in the home, everyone was suddenly caught off guard by the fluorescent kitchen light flickering. Moments later, once everyone's attention was on the fixture, just above their heads, the flickering stopped and then began just seconds later. Must be time for a seance, Eddie said, breaking the silence. Let's do it down in the downstairs living room, he suggested. Turning her attention from the light into the switch, Belinda saw the switch moving up and down by itself. Yeah. You're right. It's time for another. Sterling, James, Lloyd, and Scott. Angel announced as he stood up from the table. I'll beat you guys downstairs. Instantly sprinting, like the beginning of a high school race marathon, Lloyd, James, and Scott left Sterling behind, beside the light switch, as they darted down the first of the 2 flights of stairs. Rounding the bottom of the first set of steps, a coat that was hung on one of the hooks in the foyer area fell off of its hook and hit the floor. Just as Angel reached the bottom step of the first flight of stairs, a light coat of Macaulay's had suddenly fallen off of its hook, almost causing Angel to trip down the second flight of steps. Out of the corner of his eye, Angel could see that Macaulay was right behind him. Nearly running into Lloyd, Scott squeezed himself between the handrail and his friend as he had decided that he wasn't only gonna beat Angel into the downstairs living room, he was also gonna beat James and Lloyd as well. Looking behind himself, just as he bumped into Lloyd, he could see that Angel was nearly on his heels with Macaulay about 5 feet behind him. Aiming for the far seat of the downstairs couch, Scott had bumped into a trash can that stood at the nearest end of the couch, causing it to tip over. Just as Angel reached the bottom step of the last set of stairs, he turned towards the living room couch just as the trash can suddenly flew over onto its side, causing a few shredded papers to poof into the air, and then spread themselves around the plastic trash can, while it laid on its side. Okay guys, Malachi said as he made his way down the steps, please remember that only the living children in this home will be able to clean up spills created by your guys' horseplay. Let's slow down just a little. Immediately, James, Angel, Lloyd, Macaulay, and Scott heeled to Malachi's words as everyone now quietly formed a circle in preparation for a seance. Then, after the basement lights were turned off, Eddie began to speak. We gather here tonight, in this circle, to welcome our friends, James, Lloyd, Sterling, and Scott. With the love within me and the love within this home. Hey guys. A demonic voice began with Lloyd's face glowing in the center of the circle. How was your vacation? Lloyd asked as he turned to face his old friend. Our vacation went great. Malachi spoke up. We learned a lot about Michigan. And each other. Lloyd interrupted. Yeah. And each other, Malachi said as he looked at his son and Tommy. And I'm okay with it, Lloyd. As Malachi said this, everyone else suddenly had looks of question plastered on each other's face. And you should be Malachi. Lloyd said in a quiet voice, because what's most important here is that you love your son. Also, your son loves you too. Regardless of his personal life, Malachi, so long as he's not hurting himself or others around him, you should love and rejoice your son no matter what. Lucifer is one of the luckiest kids in the world. And so are you, Tom. Lloyd said as he suddenly turned to look at the two. They have the greatest family. The greatest source of love. And they both have each other. What's going on, guys? Ronnie interrupted. Well. Lloyd responded as he then looked towards Ronnie. I can't really. Uncle Ronnie. Lucifer spoke up as he also stood up to his knees. Tom and I are gay. I'm sorry, Uncle Ronnie. But it's something that... Lucifer. It's alright. Ron interrupted, and it's alright because I know that you and Tommy truly love one another. This hasn't changed anything, Lucifer or Tom. Because no matter what, I'll always be your uncle, I'll always love you, and I'll never see you as anything less than what you always have been since birth. The most perfect nephew that anyone could ever ask for. And you too, Tommy. Same here, Lucifer and Tom, Eddie said as he reached over and patted the 17-year-old on the leg. You two are two of the greatest people in the world, and always will be. I love you guys too. And me too, Angel said as he slowly stood up, walked around behind everyone, and then came up just between the two teens. I love you guys very much, Angel continued as he then wrapped his arms around both Lucifer and Tommy. With the end of this hug, Lucifer gently pulled Angel down, across his own lap and Tommy's lap in genital play. As you guys can see, Lloyd continued, everyone still loves and accepts you, Lucifer and Tom. Turning to face Malachi, that's the big secret that we've spoken about for the last 20 years, Malachi. It's about not having any limits to your ability to love. Sterling, James, and Scott wanna talk too. Moments later, Lloyd's face disappeared as Sterling's illuminated face soon started back at Lucifer. Lucifer and Tommy. Sterling said, causing everyone to suddenly shift their heads facing upward, I love you guys too. Thank you, Sterling. Tommy responded. We love you too. And Sterling, Tom continued. Yes, Tom? We found Eric Meyer's gravesite. Just as soon as the words came out of his mouth, it had seemed as though you could hear a pin drop across the room as sound had instantly dissipated. Even Angel, whom was still laying across Tom's and Lucifer's legs, had frozen place as he was immediately haunted by the silence. Before we found his gravesite, I had only known of him. Now, I know about him too. And why you died. Hey Sterling. Malachi spoke up. You need to talk about your feelings, buddy. It is not healthy to keep your feelings bottled up. We're your friends and we're here for you. Understand me? Yes. I understand. Sterling said quietly, and Tommy, what you said didn't upset me. If anything, you guys seen his gravesite is added insurance that he is in fact right where he belongs. Sometimes Malachi, Ronnie, and Eddie, I wish that I could have helped you put him there. And you would never believe how thankful I am that you guys looked out for me. You're our friend, Sterling. Ronnie spoke up. As our friend, you have that coming, and yes, we do know that you're extremely thankful. We love you, Sterling. After looking down to the floor, Sterling then looked up as a tear ran down his cheek. His watered eyes made the blue of his eyes seem to glow against his blonde hair. I don't think that that's all that is on your mind, Sterling. Ron cried as the 16-year-old turned to face him. I miss being able to go out with you guys. I miss my grandma Henderson. It's just a lot of little stupid things put together. Sterling said. Sterling. Belinda spoke up, those aren't stupid things. Those are things that we all take for granted. You just need to remember what you still got, and that's Malachi, Nicole, Ronnie, Eddie, Angel, Lucifer, Tommy, Macaulay, Don D., Lloyd, James, Scott, and me. That alone is 13 very important details, honey. And, just the same, we consider you to be very important to us as well. Sterling. I remember, just before you died, that you and I had walked into the gas station. Before we walked in, you had assured me that Ronnie loved me just as much as I loved him. I had wished so much that he would ask me out. I just couldn't wait. Then, once we were in the gas station, you offered to pay for my soda. I turned down your offer, but I had also thanked you. I also told you that Ronnie would have thanked you as well. What I'm saying here, Sterling, is that I feel that we are very lucky to have you as a friend. We love you, Sterling. As a smile slowly grew upon Sterling's face, he slowly raised his hand and waved to everyone as he then walked out of the circle. In his place, Scott walked into view, for his turn to speak. It's sure nice to see that you guys are all back home now. Scott said as he smiled at the entire family. We had a lot of fun, Scott, Dondi said as she gazed at the 6-year-old. I know that you did. Scott answered, Just imagine the fun that you could have if you were on another planet, like Mars. It would be cool if we could visit other planets easily, Dondi said with a smile on her face. But, Scott commented, it only takes hopes and dreams to accomplish the impossible. Look at Eddie. Instantly, everyone looked at Eddie as a look of confusion covered his face. Years ago, shortly after he had learned that a kid had died on the property that he lived on with his parents, he taught himself to do seances so that he could communicate with the dead. Warrener. Eddie interrupted, he died when the shed collapsed on him after a strong gust of wind. Warrener was his last name. I don't remember his first name. But you know. Scott continued, if you hadn't taken the time to learn to communicate with him, you wouldn't be talking to us now. It's not every day that someone is able to talk directly with a ghost. You guys can though. And more than that, we're learning to physically participate together within this home. It's weird, Eddie said, that kid was a Cub Scout, family had a good reputation, they went to church. And life isn't fair. Scott interrupted, look at Lloyd, James, Sterling, and I. We're all kids. Sterling's family had the worst of luck for car accidents, but he too was a good kid, we all went to church, Sterling and James were Cub Scouts. You've got to look at right now today. And live for today, not tomorrow. Tomorrow might not make it here. You've got to live for this very moment before it slips away. Before you realize it, it could be your turn to become one of us. When that time comes, you won't be asked what would like to do right now. And that's because it's too late. You lost your chance. Guys. Scott said as he then looked at everyone in the circle, take more vacations. And, before you ever turn away from someone, walk out of that door, or go to bed, make sure that you've told the people that you love them before you ever go to bed. If you don't, that could have been your last chance. That's life, guys. Life will always be unfair.